Hi, Sweet Pea.
Hi, Mummy Bear.
What an interesting episode of Good Old Chit-Chats we have this week.
Really interesting
This
one.
one's with Mandy Barber from Incredible Vegetables.
Yeah.
And she was on Garden as well. We saw her on the compilations early in 2023.
Yeah.
But I seem to remember her saying that they came and filmed at her amazing patch of land in the
Yeah.
Devonshire countryside in 2021.
With Francis, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
Oh, I would have loved to have been in Francis's shoes that day.
Because that patch of land was stunning, had incredible views.
It was
Looking out from
beautiful.
it, didn't it? And Mandy was showing Francis all her amazing perennials.
Yeah.
All these veg that you can put in the ground and then leave them there for a good few years, and you can keep getting harvests from them instead of the usual
Yeah.
cyclical process of handling your annual veg.
It just makes veg growing so much easier.
Yeah, it's so much easier, a lot more low maintenance.
Yep.
And so Mandy takes us through her dream garden, which involves a lot of her favourite perennial veggies and
Yeah.
some fruits. But she was struggling to limit it because she had pages and pages.
Yeah, you could see her when we were chatting, just scrolling down, really trying to find the best ones.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
It must have been exasperating for her when she grows hundreds of these things.
I mean, it's not easy.
We were limiting her. But we got a beautiful vision of her dream garden, and it does sound rather lovely, doesn't it?
Yeah, loads of plants that we did not know of.
Exactly.
Well, for Mandy's dream garden, we want to know in the following order: her garden boundary, shed or greenhouse, 5 ornamentals, 5 edibles, 1 statement tree, pond or pool plus 1 plant for that area, and finally her favourite seating area with her ideal drink and 1 plant for that area.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. We heard all sorts of things from Mandy, as we say, stuff we hadn't heard of. We
Yeah.
hear about perennial kale, which is incredible.
Really cool.
Sounds like one of the best plants to have in your garden.
Yeah.
The very unusual hedges that she has for her dream garden.
I really like this.
Yeah, been nicking that idea.
Yeah.
And then we also have a quick chat about Japanese knotweed, though we back out of the topic very rapidly because we all got quite nervous.
Yeah, even just thinking about it, it was just...
You do worry just talking about it, my tempting fate.
Yeah.
We also hear about walking onions, which
This
is
was-
just extraordinary.
This was taking plants to a next human level. Just,
Yeah.
wow, what?
Just really alien. And on the back of that, we hear a bit more about Mandy's conservation work, which is really, really critical. She has a huge responsibility and very interesting to hear what she's involved in there.
Yeah, really, really cool.
And then finally, there's also a little bit about duck potatoes.
Which I must say I've never heard of, and the name doesn't help you with what they are. So
No, exactly.
Don't even think of that.
And of course, this is the last of this series.
Really sad. Yeah. Sad to end the series.
It's been so fun talking to all of these inspirational and eccentric and interesting
Yeah.
people.
It's really, really fun, and also we can just pluck loads of these great ideas. I'm learning a lot.
I'm learning so much. But we have got series 2 lined up.
Some awesome people lined up as well.
Some really awesome people lined up for that series. So we should look forward to hearing from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we should get cracking with this one. This is a good old chit-chat with Mandy.
Let's go.
Hi Mandy, and welcome to a good old chit-chat.
Hi there, thanks for inviting me. Very excited.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Oh, good. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
So we both came across you on the compilations last year rather than the
Yes.
original one, which I think you did in 2022, didn't you? And your section was about this amazing land that you had and your just unbelievable amount of perennial veggies or edibles that you were growing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
yeah, that was such a amazing thing to do. Like the weather was gorgeous, like the
It
day
was.
was perfect, and it really caused a bit of a stir that segment in that program from all the things that happened afterwards and all the
Oh, really?
comments and feedback. Yeah,
So-
everyone was just wowed by the perennial veg.
Oh,
section.
fantastic.
Yeah.
What sort of things happened then after that segment?
Just my inbox melted down the next day. I was going, oh my god! I was going perennial kale. Where do I get a perennial kale?
Yeah.
And people going, oh, I never knew about that. And
Yeah.
just
Well, there are all sorts of plants that we hadn't heard of. So how did you acquire the land?
that was it's a co-owned project. So it was a group of people who we didn't necessarily know each other that well. So we sort of took a bit of a risk to come together, but obviously accessing land or buying land is very, very tricky as an individual. So we just thought, let's take a chance. So we all sold what we could, borrowed money, just clubbed together and went, okay, let's put a bid in as a group. And we all wanted to grow food. So we decided to do it. There was about eight original people who decided to come together to do that.
How did you all meet each other?
Just in the community. We were looking at allotments, and it was quite hard in the town where I lived to get land for allotment. So that's how we met, sort of in an allotment forming committee. And the allotment thing just didn't happen. So we didn't go out with the idea of buying land, but it just became the option that just came up at the right time at the right place.
Was that because there was a long wait list for allotments, or just no allotments nearby?
Just no allotments
right.
at all, yeah.
That's a brave step then, to come to this decision to all club in together.
Yeah, it was a brave step, but sometimes you have to be adventurous.
I couldn't agree with you more. And so you obviously are doing the incredible vegetables using that land. What are the other 7 people doing? Are they just using it for personal use, or?
Yeah, the other members most of them are just growing food for their families. So they that's what they wanted to do, to be sort of self-sufficient. And then a couple of the members have got a sort of forest garden project on the land. And for me, it started off as growing my own food, but then the exploration into perennials is what launched Incredible Vegetables. So it was sort of like the launch pad for what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So how long have you been growing your perennial vegetables?
About 15 years now.
And how long have you had Incredible Veg? Because Incredible Vegetables is your website, isn't it? Is that the name of your business?
Yeah, that's the name of my business. And the business has sort of started off as a micro business pretty much a couple of years after the land secured the land. Mm-hmm. So probably 12, 13 years Incredible Vegetables has been going, but about the last 5 years it's actually I've taken it on as a kind of more of a serious project, and because the demand is so high for the plants and the seeds that I grow, so I've really gone, okay, let's go for it.
Yeah.
So Incredible Vegetables is a website people can go to if they want to get these unusual perennial veggies.
Yeah,
and you provide the seeds. So it's mail order seeds, is that right? Or?
It's all mail order, so they can order plants and seeds. It's basically like a place where you can get like a kit to start your own perennial vegetable garden. That's how I see it. There are some very unusual things on there, but there are also some perennial staples which are really useful to people to grow, in their gardens and allotments. So it's a try and offer the tried and tested ones, and then a few more unusual ones as I discover them.
Yeah. So you have like a starter pack that you send out?
It's not a starter pack, but it's kind of more the useful staples, like leafy greens and onions and things like that you need a kind of good basis for any meal. So it's a good place to start with familiar things that are really good perennial counterparts to the annual veg that we grow, because we have all the familiar things, that we grow every year. But if you've got some perennial options that aren't too different in taste or appearance, it's a good way to get that introduction in for people to go, oh wow, I could grow this, and it's going to grow for 10 years instead of 1 year. So.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so what got you originally into doing this perennial vegetable thing?
I think it was partly having access to space, because in a small space it's quite difficult to experiment. So you focus on what you can do in that space. That's not to say you can't ram a small space with lots of edible plants, but as we all do. But that liberation of space, and I was like, woo!
Yeah.
And I discovered like one perennial vegetable, which was perennial 9-star broccoli, which is like a really really old fashioned sort of. It looks more like a giant cauliflower with lots of baby cauliflowers.
It's a pretty flower, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very unusual historic vegetable, and that was probably like 14 years ago or something. And I was like, wow, there's this perennial broccoli that you can just it can grow for 5 years in a row, and you can get florets for 5 years in a row. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. And then that was it. Then that was that was the path that I was
You never
led
look
down.
back.
I never looked back. And then I was like, wow, I wonder what else, And then you join all these nerdy perennial vegetable groups, and people are aiding and abetting their perennial vegetable habits, and then somebody else goes, oh my god, I've just got this, and you're going, oh my god, I haven't got that. We're like, where am I going to get that from? And,
I need my fix.
and it's also it's quite an adventure sourcing the plants and seeds, especially since Brexit. That's been more difficult because there are really good plant nurseries and agroforestry nurseries in Germany and Holland and the other places around Europe, and that's just been cut.
So you can't buy anything into the UK.
You can with all the right paperwork and phytosanitary stuff, but for a small scale grower, that cost is like prohibitive.
I always thought the issue was getting stuff out of the UK into Europe rather than getting things from Europe. I thought it was more stringent.
It's also that way around as well. Yeah. That all needs all the excess level of.
So what did you do when Brexit hit then? Did you just stop using those suppliers?
Yeah, I just stopped using them and be more resourceful, in what I produce, like sourcing suppliers in the UK, but also just working with the plants that I already had. And then, that's a real impetus to produce your own seeds from your own stock, because then you're becoming one of those important suppliers yourself. Mm. So you might not have the vast range that you once wished for, but you work with the ones that you already have, and then just try and work with them and do that really well.
And what were you doing prior to getting that land? Were you just growing in your own back garden, or did you have no outdoor space?
Yeah, I had a small back garden, which when I moved in with my partner was obviously lawn and not much else. And I go, well, that's got to go.
Dug up all the lawn.
So immediately raised beds appeared, and
was this his place?
Yeah, it's his place. And
so you moved in, said, right, the lawn's going. You raised beds.
And the really funny thing is, he said he was looking through his photo stream, for the last 20 years for some reason, and he just said it was a bit by bit taking over. So it was like it started with one raised bed in the back garden, then it started with a field, then there was 2 polytunnels. Oh look, then there's 3 polytunnels. Oh look, then there's another farm just up the road, and then there's a multi-span, and then there's just like this expansion, and just going, oh my god, what have I done? It's just like, it's really funny.
That reminds me of, do you know Mary Benjer? She's got Borough Farm Gardens in Devon.
Yeah.
And we went to visit her, and she said she was also on Gardener's World, and she said how bit by bit she just moved the fence a bit further out into the dairy farm. So it was just expanding. That oak tree I'd like within the garden rather than the other side of the fence, and then by the afternoon the fence was on the other side of the oak tree.
Yeah, but stealth expansion.
Yeah, exactly.
At the dead of night.
Yeah.
And do you have a background in horticulture?
My background is actually as an artist. So horticulture is like my second career.
Are you still artying?
I am arty. I am in terms of like I used to do a lot of sculpture and a lot of photography. Right. So the photography still comes into play in terms of documenting and just the sheer beauty. Sometimes your breath is taken away by the beauty of the plants. I've been documenting the whole journey, but also there's a real creative process in garden design, and which also feels like a living installation of some kind. My background was also in sculpture, and I feel like those kind of artistic ways of thinking still come into play with the plants, and the space, creating the space, the enclosures, all the undulation of plants and all of those things. It's just working with living things instead of other materials. So.
Yeah, I can see that. Are you still sculpting?
No, just
where's the time?
Maybe sculpting piles of compost, but more the visual. It's more the visual side that I still work with in terms of like photography and video, and things like that, because I feel like there's so many moments and you can never capture it completely with an image, but because the plants I work with are so unusual, it's really, really important to kind of have a document of those as well. Like,
and you've got a gallery on your website, haven't you? I was having a look through that.
That's a tiny snippet of what's going on.
Really?
Yeah.
Where do we find all your other images?
Well, it's just a matter of like me. I could put thousands on there.
Right.
Yeah, it's just time constraints really. But they should all end up in a book at some point.
Oh, fantastic!
Which is the idea. So.
A photographic book or a
kind of
book?
informative and photographic.
Oh,
resource.
fantastic!
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, we look forward to seeing that. I have so many more questions, but we must get on with your dream garden, Mandy.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to hand you over to Sweet Pea and she'll take you through it.
To start off your dream garden, because this can be anything you want, let your imagination go wild, what will be your garden boundary? So surrounding your garden.
Garden boundary, I feel like it needs to be a wild hedgerow of edible plants. So I've actually started one of these, but I think for me, plants. When I'm thinking of plants, I don't just think of what's good for the humans. It's not just about human benefit. So if you can plant a boundary that's also habitat, and nectar, and maybe fruit to collect, but also shelter, windbreak. I like to think of things as a multi-purpose. So that the wider sphere of life forms are also benefiting from it. So. But something wild. I'm not really into kind of precise edges or trimmed anything being trimmed. So wild and unruly.
Could you name any specific plants for this area?
Well, I've actually designed a sort of giant perennial kale hedge, which is about 2 meters tall, and it's a monster hedge. So it's an edible hedge, but I've also got autumn olive trees in there which have edible fruits. And there was a few sea buckthorn in there, and various other bits and pieces. So it's kind of like a mixed hedge.
That's
How long
amazing.
do the perennial kale plants live for?
Anything up to about 10 years.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah,
really?
And they're very big and very woody structured. One particular type, so it's actually really useful, edible windbreak. It's not something you traditionally think of as a hedging material.
No, not at all. I love hearing about it. So perennial kale, how does it differ from the annual kale that we'd grow in our gardens?
Well, it's obviously much more long-lived, and it very rarely flowers, so it's propagated vegetatively rather than through seed, although they can in an odd year throw up a few flower spikes, but nothing like a profusion of flowers that you'd get on
the
a
bolting
biannual.
that we get. So you said it's very woody, so it's got a central stem, or does it have branches off that stem?
There's different types. So the Taunton Dean kale has a kind of almost like a woody shrub structure, but that's not to say that the leaves are tough. Like the leaves are actually quite tender, but its structure is not anything like you'd see in a kale that was planted one year and then cleared the following spring, which are kind of much softer, much smaller. I mean, these can grow 2 or 3 meters wide and 2 meters tall if left to their own devices.
Is this the one you're using in your hedge?
Yeah, I've got
the Taunton Dean kale.
whole row of them, whereas others that I grow are kind of a bit more compact, a bit more suitable for smaller spaces, and just have, instead of a woody structure, more of a central stem and then lots of kind of smaller side branches. So there's different ones for different size spaces.
So if you're using the Taunton Dean kale and you want to make a hedge, how would you plant? How far apart would you put the plants, and how do you maintain it? What do you do?
They're very unfussy, so you don't need well cultivated soil. Like, if you put them in a raised bed, it's going to eat your raised bed whole. So it's better to put them in a marginal space, and you can just dig a hole and then just keep it well mulched, with well rotted wood chip or compost until the plants have got big enough, and then they make their own shade, and then they'll outcompete the weeds. So that for their first year, you kind of just need to kind of keep it clear around the base while they're establishing. And I'd space them. I think I spaced mine about 2 meters apart or something. So
right.
so they can
Yeah,
grow
because they're
out
so
either
wide, aren't
side.
they?
Yeah, they can grow out either side. And in terms of maintenance, I haven't actually done anything to them at all.
Oh,
Apart from
this
eat
is
them.
my kind of gardening. Yeah.
Yeah, entirely.
It's the first time I've heard of a kale hedge, and that's such a lovely idea, isn't it? And you could just be stripping off the leaves whenever you want to munch on
Yeah.
some, and they sound pretty low maintenance apart from that first year.
Yeah, they've never
I'm
been
tempted by
watered
this.
or pruned, or apart from you get the odd dead branch, that branch that's got damaged. So you cut off any sort of dead material. But
Yeah.
other than that, you can just sort of pick them continually once they're established.
Oh, fantastic! We need to find somewhere to try that, Sweet Pea.
Yeah, entirely.
You're getting ideas now, aren't you?
I'm thinking through my head all the different things I could do with these new sea kale, these perennial kales.
Yeah.
One question I had was, what is the kind of weather at yours? So do you need to protect any of your perennial plants?
From frost, you're talking about?
Yeah,
We're quite
frost.
high up on Dartmoor, so I think it's about 600 feet or like 200 meters. And I think most of the perennials I grow, I choose the hardier ones. I do grow a few frost tender perennials which will need to be in the tunnel over winter. I'd say more damage comes from icy winds damaging plants rather than the actual temperature. It's quite an exposed site, so I have lost a few things but it's more to do with biting winds than
Okay.
than actual. They're actually really cold tolerant. Most of the ones I grow. So,
What do you use anything to try and prevent the wind from hitting your veggies? Or is
to
that
be
what
honest,
this hedge is?
Yeah.
to be honest, yeah, I have so many plants. They have to just take their own chances.
Doesn't matter. This is what I loved about you on the segment, was that there was this very laid back, and I don't know if you're like a swan and you're just paddling frantically under the surface, but on the program you seem so chilled about it all, and there seems a nice low maintenance attitude towards everything. And I just thought, this is right up my street. The lower the maintenance, the better. Is that accurate, or is there a lot more going on behind the scenes than we are aware of?
I think I've learned to let go a lot. I mean, like, nature is a great teacher, and since I've been at the other side, obviously my time at the original site has got less and less. Obviously, I spend I check in up there, but the original perennial garden, the one that you saw on Gardener's World, I mean, it's had the least maintenance ever in its history, and it looks the most beautiful. The things that the plants get up to when you're away, it's like incredible.
Yeah.
And I need to reclaim a few paths here and there, but to be honest, when you reach the saturation level of no bare earth whatsoever, then there's no more places for those pioneer weeds to go. So it's like it's been crammed so full of perennials. The nettles and the docks, always try and take over. So if I kind of manage them, the rest of the area is there's no bare soil for anything
no
else
room
to
for anything
colonize,
else.
and there's no room for anything. So it's actually reached an equilibrium, and it's
Yeah.
wild and untamed. But the perennials pretty much push through anything. So all the really established plants, they're there come what may, whatever's happening around them. So I've had to let it go a little bit in terms of what the maintenance I would, or tidying, if you like, to keep the paths tidy. But actually, it's actually evolved into like an exquisitely beautiful space.
Yeah.
And that's with less intervention, not more intervention. So it's actually
This is good news, isn't it?
it's actually
This is amazing.
you have to have time for that to happen. It's not an instant.
Yeah.
It's like 14 years of planting, but then actually it's looking after itself, and
Yeah.
it's an
That's
evolution.
brilliant.
It's an evolutionary process. Yeah.
Would you like a shed or a greenhouse? Because we now want to see what's going to be in your garden.
I really like hideaway places. So if I was going to imagine my perfect little sort of cabin or little place to go, it would have to be something organic, like a little hobbit house with a turf roof or something.
Yeah, really.
I mean,
excellent.
all my places are kind of, tunnels,
Yeah.
polytunnels, but something a bit more organic and earthy that was sort of part of the landscape. We could just go and sneak in there, have some cozy things to sit on, and have a cup of tea in there.
I love that.
Really
So
nice.
kind of a she shed. So
Yeah.
it's not specifically for growing. So it's not a shed for storing your pots, and it's not a greenhouse for growing your veggies.
No, more a little hibernatory
little retreat
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So turf roof. I love that idea.
Yeah,
That's
a living
really
roof
cool.
of some kind, or just something really small, like Dingley
Yeah.
Dell, like
Little nook.
Hobbit like.
Would you have a window so you could look out to your garden?
Yeah, I think some small windows, a bit of natural light in there.
Is it wooden?
I'd say it was more like a cob type of building.
Sounding more cobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you have as the view beyond? Because obviously at yours you have this beautiful view. So what would you want, that same view beyond, or another type of view to look out onto?
I don't know. I think just looking out onto the wild garden is beauty enough.
Yeah.
Sort of, I really like big plants, so I really like. I've always been a fan of sort of massive architectural plants. So I actually really like to feel amongst them and in between them. I'm not too good with like low growing things. It's like massive things.
It's not so good for the back either.
I like huge plants that are bigger than me. So I feel like if I was going to look out on something, it would be that idea of being cocooned and like in amongst the plants. That's the happy place.
Oh, it sounds lovely.
I so understand that. The amount of times I've walked out into the garden shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, where are you?" And I just see her head just pop up from in the garden. It's like hide and seek.
We're exactly the same. Yeah, we're exactly the same, Mandy. We like everything to go up, and so this year our veggie garden, we've grown just about everything vertically, even the courgettes, and we made big solid structures that are semi-permanent so that we can reuse them each year, and everything's just growing up. Even all the squashes are growing right, and you can't reach the top ones. We went a bit wild with the height, but
it's impossible.
It's so nice being in amongst it, isn't it?
Sounds beautiful.
Having all these little nooks and crannies to hide behind. Basically, we're not very sociable. We like to get away from humans.
Just be with the plants. You don't have to speak to anybody.
That's what it all boils down to.
Yeah, like if a neighbour comes around to talk to you, you can just hide really quickly.
Hide behind a hanging giant squash.
Exactly.
Exactly. This brings us on perfectly onto 5 ornamentals. So what will be your first one?
Yeah, I was going to go for the edible ornamentals. Yeah. Well, my number 1 is Apios americana, also known as hopnis or the groundnut, which as an ornamental edible, I mean, I'll talk about the ornamental side. The vines start growing in about April. You'll see the first tips coming up, and they'll climb meters high, depending on what they've got to climb up. They'll also climb on other plants as well. And then sort of July, August, you'll start seeing the most exquisite dusky maroon pink pea-like flowers, which they have an amazing perfume as well. So you just have this spectacular vine and flowers, which rival any sort of non-edible ornamental. I mean, having an edible ornamental is the best way to go, and it comes back to what I was saying earlier, about having more than one purpose, and then under the ground, or you can actually grow them in large containers, are the groundnuts, which are really high protein tubers. They're about 18% protein. They're like a superfood, and they taste absolutely delicious. They're like a nutty, chestnutty potato
Do you eat them raw,
flavour.
or you cook them up?
They have to be cooked, but they're delicious.
How big are the tubers that you dig up?
Yeah,
they can range from a few centimetres up to about the size of a hen's egg, the really, really large ones. But usually somewhere half the size of a hen's egg is kind of under normal growing conditions.
Right. So when you've got the plant that's established, you then go and harvest those groundnuts is that then the end of the plant, or can you just take off some and leave others and it keeps going?
It's not the end of the plant. So what happens is the vines will die back in the winter, and naturally that's their life cycle. So when the vines are, when the plants are dormant, that's the time to kind of dig for the buried treasure. So the thing about them is, if you plant them in the ground, they grow on strings of almost like a pearl necklace. So you get a chain of tubers. So left to their own devices, that's quite a task. yanking out the tubers. I mean, it's good fun, but there'll always be some left in the ground. So once you plant them, they will be persistent, and they can put out runners, in a few directions. So you have to be careful, but you can actually plant those in a sort of larger raised bed area if you want to try and keep them in one area. But the alternative is really, really large containers, which makes it really easy to harvest. So when the vines have died back, you can just tip out the container and get your harvest that way, and then hold back a few tubers, a bit like holding back seed potatoes, and then start your next lot off for the following year. So depending on what space you've got, if you've got a small space, growing them in containers is ideal. And then
are you growing in containers or in the ground?
I've got both, because I've got 40 varieties, so I can't let them intermingle in the ground, because I'll never be able to tell. It's a really hard job keeping them all separate, so they're all labelled, kept separate. No intermingling,
no socialising. And what sort of size container are you talking?
You can grow them in like 35 litre, but if you can give them bigger than that, you can. My friend who runs a forest garden project has actually made these huge circular raised beds. They're about probably about 2 meters across and sort of shoulder height, with collapsible sides, and he's planted all the ground nuts in there, and then and it's got like a barrier underneath, so they can grow as much as they want within that area. And then when it comes to harvesting, he just collapses the sides, and then you can have a mass harvest really easily, and then leave some back in, top up the compost, and then so they've got loads and loads of space, but they're not going to go wandering off in places where you don't want them to.
What materials are you using for the collapsible sides?
You just use it like stock fencing with a liner inside, and it's a very simple design, but it can come apart really quickly, and then the liner can just fold down.
That must be so satisfying when you harvest out of one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the size of the plants. I gave him some tubers, and then I went to visit him, and I was like, oh my God, they're just like gone literally nuts. Like your ground nuts have gone completely. They're like, the vines were like swaying massive. I mean, it was just like day of the Triffids. Cool. It was just
it sounds.
Oh wow!
And when you've harvested the tubers, how do they last like potatoes? Can you keep them for quite a while in a dark, cool space? Or?
They will last quite a long time in the fridge, actually. As long as they stay firm for quite a while. If they're in some kind of breathable bag, they'll hold their firmness for quite a while. So
that's quite unusual for a root or a tuber to be high protein, isn't it? Normally those things are full of sort of starches and carbohydrates.
It's really unusual. At the University of Aberdeen, who I've been sort of collaborating with a bit, they've done a whole nutritional analysis on the tubers, and it's like what they contain is just fantastic. I mean, it's like vegetable protein that should be given so much more attention. I mean, they're absolutely rammed full of nutrients, protein. Even the peel of them has got high nutrients, and the leaves of the plant has got high nutrients that could actually be used as an high nutrient animal feed. And there's all these applications. But it's
to get a high protein veg is really useful, because obviously if you're trying to go plant based,
exactly.
One of the issues is trying to get your proteins. That sounds
really
incredible.
Cool. One thing you talked about earlier was the labelling of all the plants, because obviously you don't want them intermingling. Have you had to become really precise when it comes to labelling? Because I know that's everybody's worst thing when it comes to gardening.
Yeah, I am really careful. If it was my own food crops, then I don't worry too much. But when I'm working with groups of plants that I'm potentially going to be selling, then obviously the labelling has to be absolutely strict, and the record keeping, and so I make massive stakes with painted signs going like, I'm definitely not going to forget what you are. And the groundnuts in the containers, I got like indelible white markers, and then I marked front, back, side. So it's got an extra stick in there, and then another sign hidden somewhere else. So because over time, weather and you go, I'm definitely going to remember that. 2 weeks later, you can't remember any.
Always definitely going to remember.
So I do double methods to make sure I don't mislabel anything.
Not taking any chances.
What would be your second edimental?
I think Korean celery, which is Distania takasimana. It's like traditionally grown in Korea, but I think also parts of Japan. And it's a traditional forage plant in Korea, but it's a sort of the new star of the nerdy perennial vegetable world. This is one that's kind of got a bit of a flurry of attention of late, and
right.
and it as an ornamental. I mean, it's another one of those huge overhead height statuesque plants that I love. It's got very, very vivid light green foliage, very, very delicate foliage, but the umbels in the summer, I mean, they can grow the size of sort of saucers. They're like massive, absolutely loved by insects. So as an ornamental, it has a lot of benefit for insect life and architectural benefit, but it's also an edimental, so it's actually a very, very hardy celery substitute. So it's got an earthy celery flavour, so it's more useful for like soups and stews and things like that rather than a fresh. Although in the spring the tiny shoots that come up are really fresh and green, so they could potentially be used as a raw ingredient.
Does it look anything like our standard celery?
If you look at the kind of foliage on standard celery, it's got that kind of slightly serrated edge, but much more delicate foliage. And the stems are slender, and so they haven't got that thick, rich stem of traditional celery. So it's kind of different in that respect. It's not like a big blanched head of celery. It's more a multiple producing shoots, and it's one that you can keep cutting back to encourage more shoots. So as the bigger leaves get older and probably too tough to eat, you can give it a few cuts per year, and then that encourages all the new, especially after flowering. You can give it cut them back after flowering, and then you just get a flush of new winter shoots. It grows right through the winter. It's really hardy.
So why is this the latest hot thing in the nerdy perennial world?
I think it's one that people have known about for a long time, but it's like one that's just suddenly, in the last few years, it got talked about more as a useful perennial vegetable. One person goes, "Wow, look at this," and we're like, "Oh my god!"
I need that.
But it's also
it's like the craze going around the school grounds.
And in particular, like Japanese and Korean plants they have a beauty all of their own. They seem to have their own aesthetic, and that's another avenue that I've gone down in terms of edible Japanese and Korean plants, which are obviously very, very hard to source. But there are some nurseries in the UK that sort of specialise in those, and
because Japanese knotweed is edible, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's meant to be very nice.
It is an edible. Obviously, that's very controversial. I mean,
it is controversial. How do they contain it in Japan?
Well, it's all to do with the context, because it's not actually considered an invasive plant in Japan, because its natural habitat is forest. So if you imagine a plant in a forest outcompeted by tree roots, shade, and all the other plants, it just has its place. But as soon as you introduce it into cultivated ground or a space where it's got free reign, then you're in trouble. Maybe there's a lot of fear around it. Obviously, I would tread carefully in it. Maybe it's not an edible that you really want to I'd be too freaked out to ever introduce it. I know one friend grows it in a container on top
That's
on top of
brave.
bricks, like not near any open,
Yeah,
and has a
yeah.
small harvest that way. But that's
Oh,
it's got like an
really? So they
exclusion
are
zone
growing it.
around it, so it can't ever go
Yeah,
near
of
any
course.
any any open
I'm
ground.
just you'd be too nervous,
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
I'm not.
It would be something that would keep you
Yeah, I
awake at
don't need
night.
Japanese knotweed in my life. Thank you
No.
very much.
It sounds like you've got
No.
plenty of other things going on.
You'd have to walk in with laboratory gloves.
Yeah. And make sure you've got no bits on your shoes when you leave as well as the other concern.
Yeah, exactly. Just be careful.
I'm not going near
Mask,
it.
face mask.
Hazmat suit.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're
With
not doing
that
Japanese knotweed.
with that funny breathing thing that goes as you walk across the
Darth
room.
Vader.
Yeah, exactly. What's going to be the third edimental?
I have to say, walking onions.
Walking
Yeah.
onions.
They are fabulous. I love them so much. They are so they can be used a bit like a perennial spring onion. So it's like a small clump of onion greens.
Oh, okay.
But the best thing is in the summer, instead of a flowering stem, they produce a stem of small onion bulbs in the place of a flower. So they have these curious top setting onions, which are just
bizarre.
crazy looking, and then the weight of the onions
that's
on the
cool.
stem bend over the stem, and then they plant themselves next to the mother plant. So
Hence the
No
walking
so
onion.
worked out they walk about 4 to 6 inches a year or something if you work out how they bend
so
over and
cool.
plant themselves. So they
That
will
is
form a
incredibly
very,
cool.
a slow growing colony, or you can cut the top setting bulbs off and replant them. But they're also edible. So the green, all parts of the plants are edible. So I've been cultivating walking onions and trying to get larger top set bulbs. So they're more like the size of a pickled onion, like more of a useful onion size.
Okay.
A lot of them are just really tiny, sort of 1 to 2 centimeter, which you can still use raw in a salad. But to have bigger top set bulbs is also useful. But then as a perennial onion green that you can just leave in your garden, you can probably harvest it for about 10 months of the year or something.
That's amazing.
Really,
But they are
want
so
this.
beautiful.
Mm.
They are.
Yeah.
They're people who come and see my walking onions. They're going, who've never seen them before. They're just like so curious. Like, what are these alien things?
What's going to be your fourth edimental?
Oh, well, this is a new one that I've just started growing, which I've known about it for a long time, but it hasn't come my way, and I managed to source some seeds. It's a perennial lettuce, or known as mountain lettuce. It's Lactuca perennis. It's a plant that needs more exploration, but I managed to get some seeds, and I've grown them on in the tunnel, thinking, well, they probably won't flower till next year. I'm really interested in saving seeds and then trying to select for a good tasting, hardy perennial lettuces would be fabulous.
Yeah.
So I planted them, and in my busyness, didn't pay them any attention. I thought, well, they'll just be happily growing in there. Next year, I'll collect the seeds, and that's a project for next year. And then I went back into the tunnel, and they'd all started flowering, the most ephemeral, beautiful lilac open sort of daisy like flowers, and they were absolutely covered in bees. So all the flowers like bobbing up and down with the weight of the bees. I was just like, okay, oh my god, and it was like so unexpected, because I really wasn't expecting them to do that in such a short time frame. It was touch and go with the plants. They were sowed from seed, but they really didn't like what in being in containers. They hated it, and they were all like dropping off one by one. I'm like, no, it's like my only and they're going, please survive. So I'm going, okay, there's only one thing for it. You need to be planted out. You obviously don't like being in a container.
Yeah.
As soon as I put them in the ground, I kept it much drier for them. They didn't really like the wet conditions in the tunnel, being watered, daily.
Right.
So as soon as I put them in the ground and just stopped watering them, that's when they all started flourishing and flowering. And so I should get some seeds.
And what sort of leaf shape have they got?
It's a kind of like a delicate dandelion leaf shape, I guess, with that scalloped out edges, but much finer. And the
like
taste
rocket?
is a bit like that, but a very mild taste, very mild cucumbery
Oh,
taste.
lovely.
I was actually
Ooh.
surprised how good they tasted, because a lot of people reported them being really bitter,
Yeah.
Okay.
but they're actually really mild tasting. I was really pleasantly surprised.
Oh,
So
lovely. And then that beautiful flower.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Attracting
just
all the
worth it
bees.
just for the flowers.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
it.
just for the flowers.
Oh, that's a good one.
Have you had a decline in pollinators? Because I know that many people have complained this year about very little insects and very little pollinators in the garden.
When I've been out and about, I just feel that there's like a loss. In my garden, it's so round full of pollinating friendly plants. It's buzzing with life. But
Just
when I've
alive.
gone to other
Good.
places, just out and about, I just feel this absence out there.
That's because they're all at your
Yeah,
place.
yeah. I'm afraid I've stolen all. I've
Why do
stolen
they
all
need to
the
go anywhere
insects.
else? So go around
They're all
Mandy's
hanging out. They're all
place.
hanging out.
Come on,
And
lads.
no, like my seed production tunnel is rammed full of insects. Apart
Oh,
from
wonderful.
butterflies, I've seen less butterflies
Yeah.
this year. Usually get a lot of butterflies in there. Other
Okay.
insects I've seen, but out and about, I've noticed the quietness and and not, and it makes me want to cry really.
Yeah. I totally relate to that.
Right, we're on to your last edimental. Before then, we can just go to edibles. So,
Yeah.
what's your last one?
Oh, it's so hard to choose. I made like
It
a
is.
list of about 50, so I'm just going to have to
Whoa!
pick one. I'll probably have to give a mention to Hablitzia, which is Caucasian spinach, which is Hablitzia
Oh,
tamnoides, which was actually grown as an ornamental for over the last 150 years. It's been in botanical gardens, around the world. It's a climbing vine with spinach-like leaves, but in the summer it has really beautiful hanging greenish white flowers. So it was grown over pagodas, and
Oh,
structures
beautiful.
as an ornamental. But in parts of Scandinavia, particularly Sweden, it's had a long documented history as an edible
Right.
plant, as
oh
a
wow.
spinach alternative.
Grown as an ornamental as well? Or just
Yeah, but
purely
also
there to be.
used, documented recipes and
Yeah.
use in the kitchen, whereas not. But that's again. It's another one of the sort of perennial veg superstars brought to
Yeah.
light by Stephen Barstow in his book Around the World in 80 Plants. He gives Hablitzia a good mention in there,
Yeah.
and then the whole world's gone like Hablitzia
We need to
mad
get
now,
some.
and everyone's growing it as a sort of robust spinach alternative, and it's a
Right.
really good hungry gap crop because the shoots
Oh,
come up
yummy.
really early in the year, followed by the vines. So it's a herbaceous perennial, but it's a really useful spinach alternative.
And it's a climber.
Yeah, kind of goes from 0 to 60 in about 6 weeks. It's like, I just go, look, there's a few Hablitzia shoots. Oh, look, there's a 3 metre tall Hablitzia vine, and it's in the next door neighbour's garden.
Oh no.
I've got some growing at home. They're just like rampant, but then they die completely back to the roots.
Right.
By sort of October time. So it's not in any way invasive. The vines, will latch on. It's good to give them climbing support so they go upwards rather than
Yeah.
outwards.
So the whole lot dies completely back in winter, you said.
Yeah.
And do you mulch it or do you just leave it as is?
You
Let
can give it
get
a
some.
mulch, but the weird thing is, like, as the vines are dying back, you can start to see the new emergent shoots for the
Oh, really?
following year. So you can already see next year's growth just peeping through as the main vines grow back. It's getting ready to put its first shoots out.
Yeah.
Usually in about February, you can start seeing the shoots to grow. It's very
Oh,
early.
God, this is
in the
another
year.
one on the list.
I know.
And it's frost resistant, is it?
It's really hardy. It's hardy down to about -20 or 25.
Right.
But it
Oh,
likes a
brilliant.
bit of shade. Likes a bit of shade as well, so you can put it in a kind of shady,
Okay.
scruffy, non-vegetable area of your garden that nothing else will dare sprout. It will be quite happy.
Yeah.
Quite happy there.
Right, there's
brilliant.
Caucasian spinach on the list as well.
Yeah.
So we've got walking onions, groundnuts, and Caucasian spinach.
We've got quite a shopping
I'm
list
being
already.
serious.
Sorted.
What support do you do for all your climbers?
Good
Well,
question, Soupy.
the Hablitzia, you can just use some, the same as you grow peas, bean netting or some trellis against the side of a shed or
We use
or
string.
something.
Would they be all right up string?
Probably need something a bit more sturdy than
Okay.
because they like to kind of spread up and out. It's good,
Right.
good to give them a lattice work of some kind.
Okay.
Although I have seen people train them up wigwams of canes. They don't latch on to bamboo very well, but if you train them in the beginning and they've got a hold at the bottom, I've seen beautiful wigwams of Hablixia grown in containers like that. So as long as the container's big enough and the compost is kept damp enough, I've seen them grown really well. They will obviously put down much deeper roots if you can give them a space in the ground. And the ground nuts, the vines, they will absolutely grow onto anything. So they rapidly grow up bamboo canes, but they'll also. I've got ground nuts growing up my fennel plants, which is one of the sneaky things they did while I was away. I came back to find all the ground nuts, because flowering fennel can get, overhead height. All the ground nuts I'd planted in the ground had made friends with the fennel, and they were like using them as their climbing support. So
wow.
They will also that's what they do in the wild. They would find shrubs and trees and branches to cling on to. So
a more useful bindweed.
Yeah, much more useful.
much more useful.
Yeah.
Now we're on to the edibles. So this can be an amazing list, I have a feeling.
Yeah.
What will be your first one?
Oh, well, I thought I'd add a few fruits in there as we've been talking about vegetables. But
cool.
Japanese wineberry. I don't know if you've tasted those.
Never heard of them.
But they are like a lovely, sticky, small fruit, and they have a short season through most of August. But they're really delicious, really sticky, like dark wine red coloured.
Oh wow!
What size are the fruit?
Like a small blackberry sort of size, really.
Are they smooth skinned, or do they have little sort of bubbles like a blackberry or raspberry?
Similar to a blackberry, but much smaller patterning on them. But they ripen, but they don't open their sepals until the last minute, so the birds don't see the ripened berries. So generally you get most of the crop. They don't. Not that I don't want to share my berries with the birds, but these are ones.
You don't have to explain.
After everything else has been eaten, these are ones you go, wow, finally got some berries to eat.
Oh,
that's on a shrub, not a tree. Then
they sort of have arching stems, slightly bristly. So they'll grow a bit like other sort of cane fruit, and they'll layer themselves, given the chances, that you'll end up with giant hoops of wineberries, everywhere. So you do have to kind of keep them a little bit, because birds will drop the berries, and you'll find a wineberry coming up, miles away from your original.
Yeah.
But as a sticky, fruity treat, they're really lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Never heard of those before.
No. What's your second one?
The second one is a hardy kiwi, which which is like a small, smooth-skinned kiwi. So they're probably only like a few centimeters long, the fruits, but they come really late in the season. So you start gathering them really in September. I've still been harvesting the last in November, so there's like a really late season fruit, and they require a bit of patience, because you can wait sort of 5-6 years before they first fruit.
Okay.
So it's like
don't lose heart.
It's a long wait, but then you're rewarded with truckloads of fruits in the subsequent years. They're really tasty.
Are they like the other non-hardy kiwi where you need to have a male and a female plant?
Yeah, you can have one male for 6 female plants.
And they're vines as well, are they?
Yeah, they are really rampant vines, and you need a really sturdy structure for those. Okay. You need some good old posts and, to support them.
And when you cut through as kiwi, is it the same as another?
It has a little circle of a seed pattern and a green fruit, but it's the outer you can eat the whole thing, because the outer skin is smooth, and it's a greenish purple. As they ripen, they go like a lovely
pretty
kind of purple pink on the outside.
Oh wow,
they're so delicious. I just cram loads of them.
Yeah,
It's like, forget taking any home. You're just like walking along the
eating them home.
2
then.
big pouches full of
It's relatable.
hardy kiwis.
We bought kiwis. We bought 2 female and a male, but the non-hardy type, the furry skinned one, and they died with the second year of frost we had, so we didn't get far at all with that. Bit disappointing, although Sweet Pea doesn't like kiwis, so she wasn't that phased.
You weren't too worried.
I love them. So.
Well, you might like the hardy ones because they're a different flavour to the regular ones, yeah.
And you will have
And they're
long
hardy,
left home,
so-
Sweet Pea as well, so you won't, by the time they start fruiting. So you won't,
Yeah, true.
You won't care.
I'll
6 years
I'll
down the
sneak
line.
back at the dead of night, and then you'll see me running home with handfuls.
Your hamster cheese.
Yeah, big cheese. What's your third edible plant?
Well, I have a perennial kale in there, so I want to tell you about another one, which is called keeper kale.
Keeper kale.
It came to me from a friend in Wales who's a perennial brassica plant breeder, and it's a cross between a purple tree collard and a Dorbanton perennial kale, and it was a kind of accidental, well, not accidental, but it was one that he was crossing to get offspring, and this was like the absolute best of all the offspring, and he produced this amazing compact perennial kale, which the caterpillars hardly take a bite out of it. It's
brilliant.
got really good resistance to caterpillar damage, and it's more of a small, it's not like the Taunton Dean that takes over the world. It's more of a compact meter by meter kale.
Yeah.
That's quite small for the perennial kale world, and it's
I love that's a small one.
It's got deep green, deep purple leaves, so it's
beautiful.
It's it's very, very pretty as well. But once it's got going, there's like absolutely masses and masses of foliage to eat. And even some of the perennial kales can get a bit ropey in the summer. In the heat, they're better in the cooler months. But the keeper kale, still been harvesting right through the summer. It's still got lovely, delicious, tender leaves. And
What's your fourth edible plant?
oh, so hard to choose. But
especially for you, because you've just got so many of these.
I have to mention everlasting onions, because these are another revelation. I was speaking about these at the Oxford Real Farming Conference, and everyone was like, everlasting onions? Who knew there was such a thing? And these are a really old-fashioned sort of cottage garden plant. They would have been like the perennial kales. They would have been at the bottom of people's gardens, centuries ago as a staple, and passed on from neighbour to neighbour. And the same thing with the everlasting onions. They generally don't flower, so they're another one that you have to kind of propagate from divisions. And again, they would have been passed on from person to person.
Why did we stop that?
I just think it's like the advent of, like, things changed with the Victorians, really, like sort of seed companies encouraging people to buy things annually, and sometimes breeding the perennial nature out of things to turn them into annuals and biannuals, and I just tastes change, and also probably the dynamic, if you were relying on crops that you had to make sure stayed alive in your community, that's very much changed now, although that's something we need to go back to. But that's that, when things are readily available elsewhere, that you don't have to grow. That's why part of the work I do is also sort of conservation, because it's these old varieties, some of them have already been lost forever. We're never going to get them back. So things that are, if you've got a seed bank, that's a relatively, you can give them the right conditions, collect seeds. That's a seed bank for the future. But with living plant material that has to be propagated vegetatively, somebody's got to be the caretaker of those, those plants. They've only got a certain lifespan. So who is the curator or the caretaker of those plants? Who is it that stops them going extinct? Who cares about them? And it does really matter, because these perennial plants, they need to exist into the future. So part of what I do is sending them far and wide to customers is a good way of making sure there's pockets of them all over Britain. And also me trying to keep the varieties alive or improve them is another part of that work. So the more that can exist in this country, the better, because we know hopefully somewhere in someone's garden they've still got this plant existing, which might very much need to rely on in the future. So it's really important.
So that's a big part of your work then.
Yeah, it's really important being the caretaker of rare plants. Yeah.
Are you self-sufficient?
I mean, I've got a lot of things to eat. I think it's self-sufficient in most things. Yeah, it's just things like your grains and things like that are obviously very tricky to do on any small scale. But in terms of fruits and vegetables and tubers and having some things to harvest over the winter, then there's a lot of it's basically like having a little bit of everything, which is also really good for your diet, to have a little bit of everything, because you're getting different nutrients from different plants here.
You had a plant on Gardener's World that you said was like quinoa. What was that plant?
Oh, yes.
Which one was that?
Let me have a look.
Oh, Good King Henry, yeah.
Good King Henry.
Good King Henry. Sorry, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, that's a sort of indestructible spinach alternative, but also it's a quinoa relative. So there just needs to be loads more work done on that side of that being processed, as a kind of type of to be used like a grain. But again, that's like a multiple purpose plant. It's like got grain possibilities. It's got spinach like leaves. It's host to like 4 different moth species, I think. And so it's like, wildlife potential, grain potential, leafy greens that nothing else eats.
That's always a bonus.
They don't get grazed off by slugs, and their roots go down. It's part of the reason why they survive so well. I mean, Good King Henry root systems are just mad. I mean, they go down. I've seen them going down nearly a metre. Like, just they're really welded to the ground. Like,
no watering then.
No, definitely no watering. You don't want to water them. You don't want them to get
water anything.
No.
So these everlasting onions, do they taste like other sort of annual onions?
Yeah, they're just like a strong spring onion, and the magic about them is that you plant one bulb. It's not like a huge swollen bulb. It's more like a sort of large swollen end of a spring onion, really. Although they can get like a small shallot size at the bottom. Plant one, over 6 to 8 months, it will split at the base, and you grow into about 15 to 20 more onions. So they can happily stay in the ground, and you can just cut the onion greens. But the other alternative is that when you've got a nice clump, split the clump, eat some, replant some. So over time, you can start off with 5. And over a couple of years, you can end up with like literally hundreds of them, just by replanting, replanting, or you can just keep it as a perpetual patch of onion greens to use, like a perpetual spring onion. I mean, they're really old-fashioned plant, and you can barely get them anywhere. I mean, I was lucky. I think I got 5 onions probably like 20 years ago from a specialist nursery, but trying to source them in this country is like really hard. So I've been like perpetuating those as well.
So it's from you that we can buy some everlasting onion seeds.
They're just about going to be ready in the next couple of weeks. They'd had a terrible winter, because everything was sat in a foot of water. They really didn't like that too much. So they just like, no, we're not doing it. And now it's got warmer and drier. They're actually okay. They're perking up and doing their clumping thing. So they were in the doldrums all winter, which was unusual, because normally they would just carry on really happily doing their things. It was just too much water,
too wet.
Too wet. But they've recovered now, so they're doing their thing. So.
Everlasting onion, sweet pea. That's going in the onion bed.
Well, we've got that down. Well, finally, what is going to be your last edible plant?
Oh, what else have I got here? Oh, there's
big choice.
I'd probably say let's give a shout out for a Jerusalem artichoke, which is called a dwarf sunray. So this is a different kind of Jerusalem artichoke. So it's grows to about 5 feet generally. But the most spectacular thing about it is that it flowers profusely between July and September. So unlike the other artichokes, which you get, a few lovely flowers, this towards August, September. These are just a riot of yellow flowers, so you can use it as a cut flower as well as a tuber
brilliant.
harvest.
Well, I think we have it.
Yeah,
Because
have you got it?
We have one.
We were given the seeds or plug plants from a neighbour. She used to own a garden centre many years ago, and when we were starting up our garden, she gave us quite a few bits and pieces to help fill the land. And we had this thing, and we didn't have any idea that it was a Jerusalem artichoke. And then we read up about Jerusalem artichokes, and it wasn't as tall, but it's still pretty tall. And floppy as well, but this
very floppy actually.
Flowers profusely throughout,
crazy
months and months and months and months, and it spreads. And we're now thinking, I don't know if you can divide them, but we're thinking we'll divide and try and plant them around.
Yeah, you can easily divide them when the foliage has died back.
Great.
Cool.
We haven't actually eaten them, but this year we said we were going to try and give it a go.
We're going to have a little look.
Is there anything we need to know about harvesting the tubers, or do you just dig them up?
I would harvest them as you need them, because they will store in the ground. They're really hardy, so they don't last that long once you've taken them out. Right. So I would only harvest as you want to eat, and then you can lift some if you want to replant some in another site. Then they can be lifted anytime while they're dormant. So you could split them up in the autumn, but you could also do that in the spring before you start seeing the shoots.
Okay.
Come up.
That's useful to know. And how do you eat yours?
Just right. Well, I mean, people have very mixed feelings, don't they, about Jerusalem artichokes?
Yeah, they do.
But the way things are going, Jerusalem artichokes and Japanese knotweed are going to be our friends.
That's a bit depressing.
No, I'm only joking. Just roasted in the oven, or soup. Like roast them a little bit and just blitz them up, but roast it until they're all gooey and sticky is right.
Yeah,
it's really nice. And that particular variety, I mean, the tubers can be enormous.
Really?
Yeah. It's like huge.
That's good to know. Well, I tell you what, when we first dig one up, I'll send you a photo and you can give us your verdict
thumbs up
on our accidental edimental.
What is your statement tree for your kind of dream garden? So it's going to be right there, so you can see it all day long.
I'd really like an apricot tree that's like burgeoning with apricots. And
yummy. Oh,
there's such beautiful trees, and even without fruit, the foliage has that beautiful orange tinge to it, and just like their habit, their kind of broad habit, and I'm just imagining like sitting under there with apricots dropping into my mouth.
Oh, yeah. Like a baby
bird. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Do you have an apricot tree?
Yeah, I planted two. They are hardy varieties, but so far we had one apricot. And then the birds flew away with that. So even my half apricot that I was going to share with my partner, was like, we went back the next day. It was like, no, it's gone.
That's a really sad story. I can imagine you going back to your partner saying, "Guess what? We have one apricot. Let's go share it tomorrow."
I should have picked it there and then.
Do you have many other fruit trees?
Yeah, I've got damsons. Damsons are also one of my favourites, and made lots of damson jam last year, and I've got different apples and pears, along with all the hardy kiwis and the rampant wineberries and things slowly taking over.
Plenty going on.
They're all mixed up in the perennial vegetable. I've sort of done a topsy-turvy forest garden, really. I started off with the vegetable layer, and now I'm introducing shrubs and trees, which is the opposite way as most people do it. But originally I hadn't thought things change, don't they, and you get more knowledge. And then I went to visit this forest garden in Denmark, one of the most beautiful paradises I've ever been to, and I realised that what made it beautiful was all the kind of shade created by the taller trees and the shrubs and the undulation of the space. And I just went, okay, I'm going to introduce a bit more of more of that into my garden. So.
Do you have the name of that forest garden in Denmark?
I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was in a tiny island called Samsø, which is sort of between Denmark and Sweden. It's a couple of hours on a ferry from the Danish side, but it was beautiful and a relatively small area. I think it was about half an acre, and this fabulous woman had just planted the love that had gone into it and the magical space that she created, and it was all full of edible
Incredible
plants.
How did you hear about it?
I was giving a talk on perennial kale in Denmark, like you do.
Yeah, like you do.
It's like, let me tell you about another perennial brassica. Like, hope the audience stay awake. But they're all like perennial kale fans, so like had like captive audience. Like 2 hours of perennial brassicas could finish most people off. But they
had found your people.
Yeah. And then a woman hosting it, Aya, who's got like a permaculture nursery over there, she said, let's go and see some permaculture projects.
Amazing.
So she took me to some amazing gardens, and then this friend who set up this like magical forest garden, so it was so healing, and I really liked the way she talked about the plants. It's a very similar way to I talk about them as, as friends and with respect as living things. She had that same vibe about her, so she really won my appreciation.
So your work has taken you around the world?
I used to go around the world a lot more when I was an artist. Right. Because now I'm looking after 10,000
you got all your
babies every day. It's like, I can make it to Newton Abbot and back.
It's so true. With us, with our garden, it's now, gosh, we can't go away for longer than this amount of time because we've got these plants that we've just put in.
Yeah.
It's a constant thing that draws us back to the garden, which is lovely because it means you don't want to ever go anywhere because you're happy where you are. But it does mean that. Clip your wings.
I'd really like to go to Japan though and just go and see all the plants on the islands, and like the wild mountain plants that get gathered in spring, and just learn a bit more about how they're all prepared. And I'd really love to do that. I'll never come back.
No. Do come back.
No. Yeah. Do you want a pond or a pool in your garden, and you can have a plant for this area?
I think I'd like a natural swimming pool with aquatic plants around the edge. So, like being amongst the plants, where I could literally be amongst, like my head could pop up between the different plants.
That's a great choice.
Like a bathing manatee in a giant natural swimming pool with lily pads on my head.
How big would you have it?
Probably didn't have to be massive, about 5 meters across or something, like a lovely circular natural pool.
Beautiful. With any animals in there?
Probably not animals, but more plants. I'll probably be too scared to swim amongst moving things.
But you'd want the fish to eat the mozzie larvae, right?
Yeah, and I mean,
true.
I'd want the frogs. I'd be really happy if all the frogs were hanging out in there.
But if they could all just jump out whilst you're in.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I don't mind frogs. It's more kind of slithery things. Can you imagine what's down there?
Okay, so nothing slippery.
Nothing slippery, but what would be the plant that you'd love to have in this natural pool?
Oh dear, that's I have actually got a bathtub of long-suffering aquatic plants that never made it out of the bathtub. So I think...
I'm
assuming you mean a bathtub in the garden, not just your
bathtub.
Yeah,
it's in my perennial garden. It's in my perennial garden, and these people gave me... They said, these are perennial edible aquatic plants. Wow. Run with them. So of course they've been in a bathtub for like 12 years, poor things. Just because I haven't had time to dig out a massive pond with my bare hands. So just that's on the to-do list of must dig out natural swimming pool next weekend, which I haven't got round to yet. So they're all these poor little plants, which they're growing, but they need to be liberated into that beautiful. So I've got duck potatoes in there, which are
duck potatoes,
which is wapato. To give it its kind of Native American name, which is an edible starchy tuber. It's an arrowhead with arrow-shaped leaves. It's really pretty ornamental. But it was used to be used as a sort of staple starchy tuber, and then as the foliage died back, the potatoes would like rise to the surface very handily.
That's cool.
So you don't have to go digging down.
Just scoop them out.
Yeah, they just float right up.
Like bobbing apples.
I'm not actually sure why they're called duck potatoes, because ducks don't actually eat them that much. But they are actually a kind of a case of an aquatic edible or ornamental. So I probably have a few of those.
That's really cool.
wow.
We haven't had that one yet, have we?
No.
Duck potatoes, nor have I heard of it, of course.
Duck potatoes in a bathtub. That's living out their little lives in the in the 1970s bathtub.
Have they spread in your bathtub?
They've they pop up their foliage every year. They've multiplied a little bit, but obviously it's not ideal in there.
No.
In there, but they're hanging in there.
Well, we've now come to the final question to finish off your dream garden. What would be your favourite seating area and your ideal drink to sit down and relax with? And you can have one final plant for this garden.
For your seating area specifically.
My seating area. I think working out in the heat quite a lot, like a shady area under under an apple tree with like a cold glass of Pimm's or something.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Would be really nice. But yeah, just having somewhere shady to cool off on hot days.
So is your apple tree is your seating area plant?
Yeah, I've actually got a little bench with a great big cooking apple tree over
gorgeous.
The top of it,
Oh, wow.
So this is a wooden bench or a stone bench?
Yeah, a little rustic wooden bench. I like rustic things.
Yeah. Well, that sounds gorgeous. So how old's your apple tree?
That's probably about 14 years old now. So
and you can sit in the shade of it?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
Oh, that's impressive.
Wow.
How are you growing your trees so quickly?
I don't know. They just like it there.
You talk sweet nothings to it.
Yeah, how big did you buy the plant?
They're usually, most of the fruit trees I put in are sort of 2-year-old trees. So they've usually got about 4 to 6 foot of stem to start off with.
4 to 6
foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your cooking apple tree sounds amazing. And do you use the cooking apples?
Yeah. Apple crumble.
Good old apple crumble. And presumably you're putting some of your own cucumber into your Pimm's and your own strawberries.
Porridge, flowers, cucumber.
Lovely.
Right, I'm going to read back to you your dream garden if there's anything you're not too sure about or want to change. So, your garden boundary, we had a wild hedgerow of edibles, kind of for habitat and also nectar for pollinators. So we had autumn olive trees, sea buckthorn and perennial kale, probably some others in there as well. Then you're going to have an organic, earthy cabin, kind of like The Hobbit. We were going down that road in Cobb, with a living roof and little windows looking out into your gorgeous garden. Then your 5 edimentals were hopness, Korean celery, walking onions, perennial lettuce or mountain lettuce, and Caucasian spinach. Then your 5 edibles were the Japanese wineberry, hardy kiwi, keeper kale, everlasting onions, and the dwarf sunray Jerusalem artichoke. Your 1 statement tree was an apricot tree. Then you had a natural swimming pool, which was circular, with duck potatoes in there. And finally, your seating area was a nice shady bench, rustic bench, wooden bench, under an apple tree with a glass of Pimm's.
Yes. Sounds lovely.
That sounds absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, sounds really, really nice.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a good old chit chat with Mandy.
Oh, it's been so great, and I've just so enjoyed it so much.